Hariom girls. So in our previous session, we were talking about all these features of Python, then the different methods of how to run Python programs, then some of the basic elements also we discussed, like what do you mean by Python comments, what do you mean by indentation, what do you mean by variables. And we also talked about different data types, like what do you mean by a string data type, list data type, dictionary, tuple, numbers, all those things we discussed in our previous session. Then in the last class, we talked about what do you mean by a Python string, then how do you read data in a Python program, and how do you display the output or result using print function as well as format function. So these were some of the examples we discussed. So in this session, we are going to talk about the different operators, right? So all these operators you might have already come across in your C, C++, and Java of your previous semesters. So these are the different operators available in Python. We have arithmetic operators, assignment operators, then you have relational operators, which are sometimes known as comparison operators also. Then we have logical operators, obviously you know that and, or, not, etc. Then two very important operators that you might have not come across in C++, Java are identity operators and membership operators. Then as usual, we have the bitwise operators also. Okay. So these are some of the arithmetic operators we have. All these arithmetic operators, you know that addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus, these are all very familiar to you. Apart from that, we have the exponentiation also, right? So when generally in C++ and in C, if you want to have exponentiation, sometimes you may be using POW function, right? Power function you will be using. So instead of that, you can use directly this exponentiation. X power y is what you call as double star. And you have another interesting division called as floor division, right? This is another arithmetic operator that you come across in the Python programming. So all these operators, I think you're all very, very familiar. I need not have the explanation for these. So let us just talk about what is floor division, which may be very new to you. Now, the floor function is the function that takes as input a real number x, and it gives as output the greatest integer less than or equal to x. So this is the definition that you have to understand. Ninja on the door close either. Okay, so this is the definition that you can have for the floor function. It again, I repeat, the floor function is the function which takes input as a real number. So it can take a real number as the input, and it gives the output the greatest integer less than or equal to x, right? So floor division of a number is not always the same as truncation. It returns the integral part of the quotient, right? So this is the definition that you have to understand. Let us see how floor function works, right? So this is how the floor function works. Please observe carefully. The floor function division is same as truncation only for the positive values, but for negative values, it is going to be different. Okay. Now, suppose, say for example, you have value of x as 10, value of y as 3, right? Please observe this one first. Both are positive values. So 10 divided by 3, 10 divided by 3, if I am giving with normal division this way, it is going to be 3.3333, etc. Whereas if it is going to be floor division, this is floor division. Okay. So x double slash y, x double slash y will give you only 3, right? Now, what you have to observe here is it gives the output as the greatest integer less than or equal to x. Greatest integer less than or equal to x. So what happens here? Floor എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടെങ്കിൽ it goes down, right? Floor means it goes down. So since it is 3.33, so 3.33 comes somewhere here. The greatest integer nearer to 3.33 is this one. So it goes down and checks what is the nearest integer. It is going to be 3. So it gives you 3, right? So 3.33 in the floor division parna below that 3.3. When you are going to have a number line something like this, you will have 0 here, then 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 like that, etc. will come here. Then you will get 1. Then here 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, etc. 2. Then here 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, then 3. Then from there 3.1, 3.2, 3.3 up to 4 it comes, right? So when the output is 3.33, it goes to floor, right? So when it goes back to floor, 3 is the greatest integer that you are going to get as the output. So that is why x floor division y will give you the value 3. Right, so this is similar to a truncation, right? So what we are going to do here, we take only the quotient and we ignore the fraction part. So you just truncate it, and when you truncate it to the integer, you get 3. So it is somewhat similar to the truncation. But let us assume what is happening in the negative value when you are going to give a negative value. So 10 divided by minus 3. 10 divided by minus 3. If I'm going to use a normal division, if I use normal division, what happens? The output is going to be minus 3.333, etc. Okay, fine. Now, let us go for the floor division. I go for the floor division. Now, if it is minus 3.33, minus 3.33 comes somewhere around here, right? So, after minus 3, I will have minus 4 because it is a floor division. So, it goes always down. So, minus 3.3 in the floor like integer value minus 4. So, you will get minus 4 here, right? I think I make sense. Suppose if you are going to have 2.4, then the floor value of 2.4 is going to be 2, right? So 2.4 comes somewhere around here. The floor value is going to be 2. Whereas if it is going to be minus 2.4, minus 3.33 example. Suppose if you are going to have minus 2.4, what happens? It goes down, right? So minus 2.4 it comes around somewhere here, minus 2.4. The floor value means floor integer, right? It goes down. So it goes down here. The floor value is going to be minus 3. So that is why minus 2.4 floor value will be minus 3. So in the same way, minus 3.33 in the floor value will be the next nearest integer, right? So which is going to be minus 4. Right? The same way, 2.4, this value you need not consider. This is a wrong one. Minus 2, if it is 2.4, if you're going, this is the example I showed for the ceiling, right? So whenever you talk about floor value, we will also talk about ceiling also, right? So when you round the value, you can have floor rounding or you can have the ceiling rounding, right? Flooring or ceiling. These are the two round operations that we generally do. Floor division means it goes down. Ceiling means it goes up, right? So that is why I took this example also, right? So this is the example we are considering for the floor value, and this is the example we consider for the ceiling, right? I repeat, whenever we do the round function, we will be using either floor rounding or we will be using the ceiling operation. Okay. So if it is going to be floor, it goes down in the number line and it takes the integer. Whereas ceiling means it goes up, right? So if it is going to be 2.4, again 2.4 comes somewhere here. And since it is going to be ceiling, it goes up and it gives the value 3, right? So 2.4 ceiling value is going to be 3. The same way, if it is going to be a negative value, minus 2.4, right? So the minus 2.4 comes somewhere around here. It comes somewhere around here. Now, since I'm going to seal it, it goes high, right? So it goes up. Then the integer value is going to be minus 2, right? So this example, I just put it here for understanding how the floor rounding and ceiling, flooring and ceiling operation of the round function will be performed. Okay, so this example I showed you how it is used in Python program. When I am having normal division, what is the output? When I have the floor division, what is the output? So I repeat here, if it is going to be floor division, it takes the floor value, right? So the next lowest value, which is going to be the integer, will be taken here. And if it is going to be positive value, no problem. It is somewhat similar to your truncation. So the floor division is going to return the integral part of the quotient value. This is the point that you have to remember. It returns the integral part of the quotient. But when it is having positive number, it will be returning the integral part of the quotient. Whereas if it is going to be negative value, it takes the floor value of the fraction part, or let me put it this way, it takes the floor value of the real number that is given as the argument, right? So this is how floor division functions. Okay, so in arithmetic operator, you have all these familiar arithmetic operators. Apart from that, we have the floor division also. So floor division is nothing but it gives you the integral quotient. Now, if it is going to be positive value, it is similar to your truncation. But if it is going to be negative, it takes the floor value, right? So the next nearest integer will be taken as the output, right? So this is the example that you can observe here. Okay. Now, another set of operators are bitwise operators. All these bitwise operators are very, very familiar to you. And operation, or operation, exclusive or, and not operator. It's all similar to your whatever you have studied in your digital system, C, C++. It is all similar to those operators. And operation, if both are 1, it gives you 1. If any one of the value is 0, it gives you 0. And the same way, or operator, exclusive or operator, then not operator, which gives the complement. Now, the two bitwise operators which we can discuss here are called as zero fill left shift and signed right shift. Zero fill left shift and signed right shift. So let us see what is zero fill left shift. Zero fill left shift is nothing but it shift the left value by pushing zeros in from the right, right? So suppose imagine I have a value A and I want the value is a binary value which has the bits like 1, 0, 0, 111. This is the binary value of A, which is a binary value, and decimal value, corresponding decimal value is also given here, right? Now, suppose imagine I'm going to give the zero fill left shift here. I give the zero fill left shift here. Now, what happens? The 0 will be filled at the right end. 0 will be filled at the right end because you're going to shift it left. So earlier I am having only 6 bits. Now I am going to shift the 6 bits and I insert 0 on the right side. So I'm totally having 7 bits. The corresponding decimal value is also given. Now, suppose if I'm going to shift it 2 times, what happens? All these 6 bits have come this way, 1, 0, 0, 111, and 2 zeros are shifted here. Okay. Then suppose if I'm going to shift it 3 times, I will have 1, 0, 0, 111, then 3 zeros. the corresponding decimal value is also given here. Now, if you observe here, if you observe the decimal value, you can understand if I'm going to do left shift, zero fill left shift, it is equivalent to multiplying the decimal value by 2. Multiplying the decimal value by 2. So 39 into 2 will be 78. 78 into 2 will be 156. 156 into 2 will be 312. Right? So the left shift zero fill operation is equivalent to multiplying your value by 2. So if it is shifted only once, you multiply it with only once. If we are going to shift it 3 times, then multiply the value with 2 power 3. So 39 into 8, 2 power 3, n value is 3 here, right? So a left shift 3 is equal to a into 2 power 3. So 2 power 3 is equal to 8. 8 into 39 will be 312, right? So this is how the left shift operation functions. Now the same if you are going to have for the right shift. If you are going to have it for the right shift, what it will do, it will be moving the entire binary sequence including the sign bit and fills the resulting gap on the left with zeros. Okay, so this is what happens here. It is somewhat similar to left shift is similar to multiplying it by 2, whereas right shift is similar to multiplying it by dividing it by 2. Dividing it by 2. Right shift is dividing the value by 2, whereas left shift is multiplying the value by 2. Most of you have done it in your digital system also, the shift operation. It is similar to that. Let us assume this is the value I am going to have. The given binary value is 100111101. This is the binary value I have. The corresponding decimal value is given. Suppose if I am going to give right shift, then this 1 will be removed and a 0 will be added here. Okay, so this 1 will be shifted out and you will have only 1001110. So this 1 is shifted out. So you will get the corresponding decimal value as 78. So it is something like 157 divided by 2. The quotient will be 78. Suppose if I'm going to shift it 3 times, then all the 3 bits will be shifted out. This bit will be shifted out. This 0 is also shifted out and this 1 is also shifted out. So you will get only 10011. Okay. So now if you observe here, the value is somewhat similar to dividing 157 by 8. 2 power 3 is 8. So 157 divided by 8 and the quotient value will be 90. This is what zero fill right shift is. Now, whenever we are using the bitwise operators, always it will go for arithmetic shift or it will go for the logical shift also, right? So this is the basic difference between logical shift and arithmetic shift, right? The same way, this is the difference between logical shift left and arithmetic shift left. Okay. Now let us observe what happens. A rotate operation we are not going to discuss here. We are going to take only the shift operation. Okay. So this is the given value. This is the given value. I have 1101. I think D0 is here. This is D0 and this is D7. So D0 is the LSB and D7 is the most significant bit. Okay. Now, if I'm going to do the logical right, this is the LSB value, right? So that is shifted. So this is shifted out and this comes here and this comes here and so on. So you will have 3 zeros and this 1 is shifted here. Then again 0. Then I have these most significant bits 1, 1. Then I'm going to fill it with 0. So this is 0 fill shift right. Whereas if I'm going to do it with 0 fill left right, so logical shift left and logical shift right are also known as 0 fill shift left and 0 fill shift right. Okay, please make a note of it. So here again, when I'm going to shift it left, I'm going to shift it left. So this 1 comes here, this 0 comes here, this 1 comes here, 0, 0, 0, and 1 comes here. Then I'm going to shift it with 0. I fill it with 0. So you will have 0 here. Okay. So you are filling it with 0. Here you are filling it with 0. Now, if I'm going to have arithmetic shift, your arithmetic left shift is similar to your 0 fill shift, right? It is similar to your logical shift. There is no difference. But whereas if it is going to be arithmetic shift right, the right shift will be considered based on whether I am going to have 1 in the first most significant bit. If I have 1 in the most significant bit, all of you know that it will be considered as a negative value, right? It will be considered as a negative value. So what happens if I want it as a arithmetic shift right, you have to shift it with the value which is available in the most significant bit. So if I'm going to have 0, no problem. It is similar to logical right shift. But if I'm going to have 1, it will be a negative value. So you have to fill it with 1 itself. Okay, so this is one basic difference you have to observe in the bitwise operator, especially in the shift operation. So whenever we have positive values, no problem for us. It is going to be similar. Logical right, arithmetic right are similar, and logical left and arithmetic left are similar. But if it is going to be a negative value, then your logical shift right is different from arithmetic shift right. I repeat, if it is a negative number, logical shift right is different from arithmetic shift right, because logical shift right will take only zeros for filling in, which is also known as zero fill logical right shift, whereas arithmetic shift right will take the value, most significant value, whether it is 0 or 1. So if it is 1, obviously it will be filling it with 1 and not 0. So this is the difference that you have to understand here for the arithmetic shift and logical shift. So this is the only difference you find here, whereas for left shifting, no problem at all. That is why we have given here for the left shift, whether it is going to be positive or negative, or whether it is going to be a signed or unsigned value, it is going to be only one operation. You call it a zero fill left shift operation. Whereas if it is going to be right shift, then whether it is a signed value, whether it is an unsigned value, it matters. If it is signed, then it will be taking it into arithmetic right shift, whereas if it is unsigned value, then it will be taking it as logical right shift. So this point you have to remember under bitwise operators. Okay. Then the next set of operators are comparison operators. All of you know what is a comparison operator. You have equal to, not equal to. It is even the operators are same as your other programming languages. Then you have greater than, then you have less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. These are the comparison operators. It is also known as relational operators. Then we have logical operators. You know that how logical operators are used. The logical operators are and, or, and, not. So if both the statements are true, it will be considered with and true if one of the statements is true, then or operator will be functioning that way. Not is for the complementing, so it returns false if the result is true, it returns true if the result is false, right? So all of us know how to use this and, or, and not. And you can observe here the operators are in our other programming languages, we use ampersand symbol, right? Whereas here the logical operators will be used as A and D itself, and OR is used as OR itself and not with not. Okay. Whereas in other programming languages, all of you know that this is the symbol that we use for double and double this symbol is used for and or, but here we are going to use it as and or itself. So these are the logical operators. Then we have identity operators. Identity operators, we have is and is not are the two identity operators. So it returns true if both variables are of same object type. If both the variables are of same object type, it will be returning true. Is not will be returning true if both variables are not of same object. Okay. So this is how we will be specifying the identity operators. It checks whether X is of same object type as that of Y. It checks whether X is not the object type of Y. Okay. These are the identity operators. Let us see an example, then it will be more clear for you. So this is the example we can have. X is equal to Y, and if type of X is integer, then we are going to print it true, else we print it false. So observe all the indentation and the colon, etc. This is the format we use for our Python program. Okay. Now X is having value 5. So just by assigning a value to a variable, the variable type will be defined. We know that because there is no declaration in Python. So whatever value you assign, based on that, the type of the variable will be defined. So since we are assigning value 5 to variable X, obviously X is of type integer. So if I check what is the type of X, it has to return, it is going to be true. Sorry, it is going to be integer. So since it is going to be integer, it will be saying that both are of same object type and it will be returning true. Okay. Whereas if I'm going to assign some real value, and if I'm going to say type of X is not integer, then print the true value. So both the program segment will give you the result as true. Why? Because here type of X is integer. So int is int എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ both are of same object type. So it will be returning true. Okay. But here type of X will be returning real, right? It is not integer, it will be returning real. So real is not integer. Obviously it is not integer. So it will be returning true, or it will be printing true. Okay. So this is one simple example you can have for is and is not operators. They are called as identity operators. Why we call it as identity operators? It checks whether the objects are of same type or the objects are of different type. Now, another operators are called as membership operators. One is called as in, the other one is not in. So the in operator will return true if the specified value is present in the object or in the collection, right? I repeat, true, it will return true if the specified value is present in the object, or you call it as a collection. So you will give the format like X in Y. So if X value is in the object Y, it will be returning true. Obviously, the opposite is for the not in operator. Okay, it will return true if the specified value is not present in the object. So let us see an example, then it will be more clear for you. Assume these are the values that we are going to have. X, I am having 24. For Y, I am having 20. and I'm declaring a list, right? All of us know how to declare a list. We will have a square bracket. Inside the square bracket, we can give the values separated by commas. Okay, and it need not be always same data type. It can have different data types also. Okay, now here I am going to have list of integers. So I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 assigned to list. Then I'm going to check whether x not in list, x not in list. What is the value of x? 24 is the value of x. 24 is not available in this particular object. So obviously x is not in list. So this condition is true. So it will display x is not in the given list. Whereas I'm going to use the in operator. So it checks whether y in the list. List is the variable, or it is a list object. Y value is 20. So it checks whether 20 is available in this particular object, right? So obviously 20 is available in this particular object. So it says y is present in the given list. Okay. So this is some simple examples that you can have for the membership operators in and not in. So in will check whether the value is available in the collection or not. Not in will check whether the value is not available in the collection or not, right? So that is the only difference between them. Okay. Then we have assignment operator. It is very much similar to all the other programming languages. If you have assignment operator, the value will be assigned to the variable. So for the assignment operator, always the left hand side will be a variable and right hand side will be a variable, an expression, or it can be a literal itself, right? You can have literal, you can have an expression here, or you can have another variable. So whatever it is, the value of the literal or the value of the variable or the value of the expression will be assigned to this particular variable, which is in the left hand side. Okay. Now you have shortcut assignment operators also. It can be combined with the arithmetic operators. It can be combined with operators. Let me put it this way. Because we can use all the arithmetic as well as bitwise operators. So you can have the operators combined with the assignment operator. This is how we will be using it. So it is somewhat similar to x is equal to x plus 3. So you call it a shortcut assignment, right? And this shortcut assignment is applicable to all the arithmetic as well as bitwise operators. So this is very, very familiar to you. Okay, so these are the different operators available in Python program. So we have arithmetic, assignment, relational or comparison operators, logical operators, and two identity operators, which are is and is not. Then we have membership operators in and not in. Then we have bitwise operators, all the and, or, not, exclusive or. Apart from that, we had also seen left shift and right shift. So the only difference in the right shift is if it is going to have a positive value, it is similar to logical right shift itself. But if it is having a negative value, then it will be the arithmetic right shift, where the negative value is represented with 1, and that 1 will be used for shifting the value, right? So these are the things that we have to understand in the operators. So we'll be discussing the if else statement, right? The if else statement is a conditional statement which provides us with the decision making. All of you know that it is very, very familiar to you because you have used if else statement in all the programming languages like C, C++, and Java, which you had in your lab sessions. And it is especially used for decision making, which is required when we want to execute code based on a particular condition. Okay. Now, generally the conditions can be checked using the if else statement, and the if statement has an optional else block, right? Please make a note of it. The else block is optional. So if you want to have a false block, then you can have the else part. Otherwise, you can, if you have only the true block to be included in your if statement, you need not have else block. So that is why we call it as optional else block. So this will be executed only if the Boolean condition is false. This is the general form of if-else statement. All of you know that if is the keyword, then you give a condition, right? The condition will be using a comparison operator, or it may be using comparison and the logical operator. So it is up to the condition, whatever condition you are going to define. Then here we need to give colon to specify that you are going to start a block. Then you need to give indentation here for the true block. Sometimes it is also called as if block, or you call it as true block. And remember, you need to give proper indentation here. Then in the same space of if, I'm going to give the else keyword. Again, else keyword must be ended with colon. Then give proper indentation, because you're going to start the else block. So whenever you're going to start a new block, you need to give indentation. So you give proper indentation here, and then you can have all the set of statements for the false block or the else block, right? So here the condition is any Boolean expression, the condition, right? So what do you mean by this condition? It is a Boolean expression that determines whether or not the if block or the else block will be executed. And this is a must, a colon must follow the condition, right? The if block is a block of one or more statements to be executed if the condition is true. As with all blocks, it must be indented one level deeper than the if line, right? So that is what I told you, need proper indentation here. So give one level deeper than the if line. So whatever you have here in the if line, one space, minimum one space you need for the indentation. Then the reserved word else begins with false part of the if-else statement. A colon must follow the else keyword. Then the else block is nothing but a block of one or more statements to be executed if the condition is false. And it must be indented one level deeper than the line with the else, right? So wherever you have started else, you can give one line deeper than else line. Okay. Now, what do you have to observe here? If you are going to give one space here, then all the statements in the if block must have one space. And the same way, if you're going to give two spaces or three spaces here, then all the statements inside this block must have two spaces. So it must have proper alignments, proper indentation and the alignment. So this is how your if statement works. You have a condition, and if the condition is true, the true block or the if block, you call it as true block, or the if block will be executed, then it goes to the next statement. Whereas if the condition is false, it executes the false block, or you call it as else block, then it goes to the next statement, right? So this is how it works. Let us see an example here. If statement, I have age equal to 23, and I check if age is greater than 25. If so, I print you are eligible to apply. Okay. So this is having only the if block. There is no else block, because we said like else block is optional. So there is no else block here. So what it does, it checks the condition, and if the condition is true, it executes the true block and it comes to the next statement. If the condition is false, it goes to the next statement without executing any other statement. So this is how it works. Correct? Okay. Then if else, it will have the condition with true block as well as the false block. So let us see an example here. Age is equal to 23. You check whether age greater than 25, and you can observe I give colon here after the condition. Then I give indentation for the if block, which is also known as true block, and I give print you are eligible to apply. And in the if line, I'm giving the else keyword, else colon, print you are not eligible to apply. Okay. So it executes either the statement or the statement depending on the condition. Then it goes to the next statement here after the if statement. Apart from if else, we have another keyword which is known as elif, right? If you have multiple conditions to be checked, obviously we will have the if, elif, and finally we will have the else case, right? So let us see an example. I'm going to ask the user to enter the age, and whatever age is entered by the user, it will be converted into integer. Then the value will be stored here. And I check whether the age is greater than or equal to 30, greater than 35. If so, I print you are eligible to apply full time. Else, again, I check whether age is greater than 30. If so, you say you are eligible to apply part-time. Again, you check whether age is greater than 25. If so, you say you are eligible to apply regular. Else, you say you are not eligible to apply. So below 25 means you are not eligible to apply. If it is 25 to 30, you can do regular. 30 to 35 means you can do part-time. Above 35 means you have to do full-time. All right, just like that. Okay, so this is another example for elif and elif keyword along with if else, right? So this is, I think this is a better example, and this flow chart shows how the elif will be working. If it is false, you go for testing another expression. If it is false, again you can go for checking another expression, or you can go for the else block, right? So these are the different formats of if else. So you will have if, only if, or you can have if else, or you can have if, elif, else, right? So these are some of the examples you can note down. Now this is your assignment. You have to do this assignment. You have to submit by tonight, 8 p.m. Sample programs to try. You are going to read a number from a user and check whether it is positive, negative, or zero. So what you are going to do, you can try the arithmetic operators, and along with that you can also try if, elif, and else. So wherever it is applicable, the corresponding statement must be used. You can use if else, or you can use if, elif, else, depending upon the situation. Okay. And the second program is you have to find the roots of a quadratic equation. Obviously you can use if, elif, and else, right? I think in both the programs you can use if, elif, else, because you have multiple conditions to be checked. And after that you can display the result using the print function as well as the format function. Please remember, the result you are going to print using the format as well as the print function. So this is what you have to do as an assignment today. So let me stop here. We will be discussing more about the Python program in our next session.